morning to everyone. Even 5 minutes ago, I didn't really know what I would be speaking about. Not because I don't have 20-something pages. I'm not going to read anything. I was obviously influenced by the previous speakers, but I was also influenced by several other impacts over the few decades I have been dealing with such issues, for instance, the one today. What I offer, yes, I just checked the, yeah. So what I can offer is only contemplation. I don't know what the truth is. I don't know what knowledge is. I doubt who claims to know what knowledge is. But contemplation is something outdated. But I believe that in a situation where we are now, in our European American culture, we ought to not to forget about certain forms of thinking. For instance, it is contemplation. Contemplation is not a strictly logical exposition of a particular problem, but it offers a certain attitude toward the world. But this is gone. So when I claim that I would like to be contemplative here, it simply means that I will have some bothersome statements. The first is just compare the idea of post-liberalism, let's say, with postmodernism. Postmodernity means that we no longer live in modernity. No, it does not. Post-liberalism, for me, doesn't mean that liberalism is over. We are not after it, not at all. What we feel is either that we try to describe something that is happening to us, globally, locally, in whatever way, to us. If it is a term of description, then most of the ideas covered by the term post-liberalism, I would say I can agree with most of them. But there are certain voices, and Patrick Deneen, for instance, tries to give a vision about the future, where we should head for, what we are supposed to do in order to heal the ills of our contemporary world. But what we are talking about, actually, my first argument, my first statement, and I'm saying it is strictly part of a contemplative exposition, that I think this contemporary debate about post-liberalism is primarily a debate of the Anglo-American culture and public life. It seems for a long time that what's going on in the US, intellectually, politically, in whatever way, socially, that is at the same time the problem of all of us. I can go with that to an extent, and this point is that, okay, but I could say this is American. The problems of American way of life, the problems of the American establishment a few hundred years ago, which is a great attempt of whole humanity. But I would suggest slowing down and not really entering and accepting all the preconditions of this Anglo-American debate, what we call, for instance, now post-liberalism. My second sort of a statement is this. I skip because the time is running. let's say, the most bothersome thing for me, or most interesting thing is what Denis had to say almost 15 years ago about post-liberalism, and it was, I want to quote him, I quote, "Contemporary conservatism does not offer an answer to liberalism because it is itself a species of liberalism," unquote. So, if liberalism is not the opposite, conservatism is not the opposite of liberalism, only it is part of it, then I have to rationalize what it means. It either means that against liberalism, conservatism is not really a kind of a intellectual weapon, because conservatism is part of it, especially the Anglo-American conservatism is part of it. They would like, as we heard our excellent previous speakers just said, a correction what the conservatives can offer to the ills of liberalism. Okay, corrections. I understand that, but if the trouble is so deep, as sometimes it is described, even by, let's say, Denis or whoever else, that the whole humankind is now characterized by anxiety or a deep distrust in the future and so on and so forth, then probably we ought to go deeper than simply saying that we are conservatives and the like. And this is now my third point, that continental European way of thinking about these things are much more philosophical. I even dare to say that what our American friends offer us is not philosophical at all. It is a contemplation, like I said. Anglo-American conservatives go back to Burke. You know, Kirk wrote his famous book, Starting Conservatism, with Edmund Burke. What's before? And what's the difference between Kirk and philosophically speaking, Kirk and, say, John Rawls? John Rawls, who wanted to produce a book on justice, but Plato is mentioned only twice in 2 footnotes. That's all. If Anglo-American conservatives go back to Burke, Burke, for instance, never mentioned Plato, nowhere in his work, thanks to AI. Although AI, how stupid AI is, adds something more, and he adds that though there is no proof for mentioning ever Plato by Burke, his conclusions resemble Okay, this is it. So AI won't solve our problems, that's for sure. Now, what's going on then in my understanding in the Anglo-American intellectual world? I think what's Dunning and others are doing is simply trying to go back to the first wave of liberalism, the original ideas of liberalism of the 17th and 18th centuries. To much extent. What they are against and what they would like to correct is the second wave of liberalism, and it was described by Gladden and others perfectly. What troubles we have been facing. I think it's not enough at all. If we really want to address the problems, which I have not yet mentioned, and I won't be able to, as I just look at the clock, then we shall only deepen our problems in the Western world. In Europe, I think, I hope that's true, that our conception of, let's call it conservatism, or simply ideas into the deepest, most profound problems of humankind would go back to ancient classical philosophy as well. Or simply the modern existential thinkers in Europe. Back to the 19th century, Kierkegaard, Schopenhauer, and so on and so on. Ortega y Gasset, just mentioning a few names, whom are very often Unamuno, just following the Spanish line. They are more, the Anglo-Saxon intellectual world is more skeptical with some of them. Now, the fourth thing, which this is now, I fully agree with, and this is the problem of the individual, and this is the core of the problem. It's not simply one of the problems, not even the chief problem, it's even more than that. It took several hundred years, back to the Middle Ages, when the idea of the modern individual was conceived. How through the Franciscan debate, how the other various circles, church circles in Europe, worked on the idea of what is private property and so on and so forth. Really don't have time for that. It's an excellent topic, a marvelous topic. How human right in the singular became human rights in the plural. And it took several hundred years. So when we are rightly, like I said, I agree with it, we have much reservation concerning the individual, the role of the individual, the excesses of the individual, then this is the real problem. How we can it is not enough just to say that, well, be more communal, or this moralistic approach won't help. What you need, and Gladden referred to that, I guess, as I understood him, we ought to go back to real philosophical issues. Until European philosophy is not restored, nothing will happen. We shall have only certain critical remarks, uneasiness about different aspects of life, and so on and so forth. When Europe or European culture, now including the American one as well, was in trouble, then always returned to rediscussing serious philosophical problems, including what is man, whether we can conquer nature or we should conquer nature or not, and so on and so forth. What about evil? Nobody mentions evil as a problem, although evil is with us, but it is still the problem of where we are. If individuality, the me culture, the bowling alone problem, and so on and so forth, which, by the way, gave rise to this new wave of nationalisms in the world, the core problem is whether we are ready to give up the idea of equality. And obviously, maybe at home, maybe when there is nobody else, perhaps equality is not really, because we cannot reconcile the excesses, we cannot correct the excesses of the individual without raising the issue of equality, which is obviously the core of the whole Anglo-American civilization. I just want to ask the patience of the native speakers that what I'm trying to do here. Therefore, I have only 2 more minutes. I would like to raise maybe two more problems. Can we really identify our true problems? Obviously, one of this is the population decline, that we are unable to reproduce ourselves biologically in our culture. And it is, yes, it is connected with the problem of the individual. Yes, it is a problem what has happened to women in our society. I admire the Hungarian government trying to change the general tendencies and trends in family policy and how to have more children in families, but the problem is much deeper. So various problems are interconnected here. What about moderation, which is, again, outdated, and it is just against the individual success? I heard at least 2 times this morning the word harmony. What are we preparing for? Are we preparing to avoid the worst, or we are seeking a new harmony? One would say compromisingly both. Won't go together, I am sure. And the last one, because I have just run out of time, this is the word economism was I heard it. In Europe, if we really want to understand where we have, where we are, what our real achievements are, and what we would like to correct or we wouldn't like to see anymore in the future, the only author I can recommend, and this is Pascal. In Pascal's thought, economy or anything like that was not mentioned at all. Not a word regarding what economy is about, how should we develop our, but he addressed the problems of man. And this is our duty, no less, no more. Thank you for your attention.